Blasphemy. 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 I think about the Tupac, Hail Mary. He's like, blasphemy. But when he's saying blasphemy, it's what do they call it? Double entendre. When it's like using the word and having two different meanings. Because like blasphemy meaning like shoot a gun for me or shoot someone for me, but also meaning blasphemy as in sacrilegious or whatever. I say a lot of things on this show that I think a lot of people would feel is blasphemous. You know, I think that the things that I say, a lot of people will be afraid to say out loud, even if they agree. And that's another reason why I feel like this show is therapy. I think it is for me, Deuce, Doc, and Pat, and maybe whoever. Like, I got a couple of regular viewers. Maybe they feel like it's therapeutic in some ways. And I know that my audience don't agree with me all the time, and that's fine. That's really great, actually. I think that if you only consuming content from content creators when it's on topics like these that you agree with, then um, you're screwing yourself in a way. You're leaving yourself stagnated. Arrested development. You're allowing yourself to be stuck. You're keeping your growth from happening. And that's what I think when people use this word blasphemy. I think that is what, like, that may not be their intention, but that is the point. Like, that is the result of it. When you use the word and you say that's blasphemy, then that's the end of it. No reason to go any further, on the topic, or on the thought or on the idea or whatever. And I've said before about like leaving people in a childlike state, that goes with what I was saying about growing, because when you're a child, you're just kind of like a blank slate, you're a blank page, and you're just absorbing information. I think that everyone's born with their personality already. But as far as, they have their personality, but then they have to navigate the world. They have to figure out how to, accomplish whatever, and, how to live, how to survive, how to interact with others. And children, they automatically are inquisitive, they automatically are curious. They want to know, but at some point, at some age, we get to the point where we feel like we don't need to know. Like, maybe we feel like we already know, or we just feel like there's no point in knowing these other things or whatever. What I'm trying to say is that our curiosity gets lost at some point for a lot of us. Our inquisitiveness, our searching, our acceptance, our tolerance. At some point, it's lost. And this word blasphemy is one of those barriers. I think, one of those cages, one of those gates. One of those locked doors that stop you from attempting to grow, you know. Can y'all hear me? Give me a second. I have to make sure that I'm being heard because I can't tell. That stop you. Okay. When there's no one here, I can't tell. My earphones will play back to me even though I'm not actually broadcasting. And after I started doing this show, I was doing more research, and then everybody said, don't use a USB mic. And now I know why. But I'm far down the road now. At some point, I'll upgrade my equipment, but right now I use a USB mic, and it kind of sucks. So I go out without even knowing it. Anyways, so I have the screen up. This is Webster's Dictionary. Blasphemy now. It's plural blasphemous. The act of insulting or showing contempt or lack of reverence for God. Accused of blasphemy. The act of claiming the attributes of a deity. For a mere man to suggest that he was divine could only be viewed as blasphemy. Irreverence towards something considered sacred or inviolable. Or inviolable. Let's see. Frequently asked questions. What is the difference between blasphemy and hearsay? Blasphemy, in a religious sense, refers to a great disrespect shown to God or to something holy, or to something said or done that shows this kind of disrespect. Heresy refers a belief or opinion that does not agree with the official belief or opinion of a particular religion. Both words are also sometimes used in general, not necessarily religious context. What is the verb form of blasphemy? The verb form of blasphemy is blaspheme, as in those who blaspheme God. It comes to English from the Latin word blasphemare or blasphemare. I don't know how to pronounce that. Does blasphemy have to be spoken? Although in certain senses of the word, it may be more common to use blasphemy in reference to speech. It may also be applied to writing. The word was broadened in meaning beyond the act of insulting or showing contempt or lack of reverence for God. It is now also used with the meaning irreverence towards something considered sacred or inviolable. Synonyms: defilement, irreverence, desecration, profanation, impiety, sacrilege. Let's read a little bit more. It says, she was condemned by the church for uttering blasphemies. In the 17th century, the Quakers were persecuted for beliefs and practices that older churches regarded as blasphemies. Let's see, recent examples from the web. It says, Tassir had been an outspoken opponent of the blasphemy laws and had campaigned for the release of Asia Bibi, a Christian convicted of insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Salman Masood, BostonGlobe.com, January 21st, 2023. Punjab province was killed and later burnt by a mob after being accused of committing blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad. Sophia Saifi, CNN, December 30, 2022. Charges of blasphemy carry the death penalty under Pakistani law. Bradford Betts, Fox News, February 13, 2023. It's funny how all of these are related to Islam. Let me see. Do they have any for anybody else? All of this is Islam. Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of tells me something right there. Because I hear it more from Christians, but maybe they don't kill people as much as Muslims do for it. I don't know. I know they did in history. Maybe modern day, they not so much. I wonder, what do you guys think about the word blasphemy? Does it bring up feelings? Does it make you think? Do you ever use that word? What is, so if someone who is, um, damn it, I should bring it back up, but if someone is in a different religion, is that blasphemous to you? If they worship in a different way, um, does that make it blasphemous? You know, if someone questions their pastor or imam or um, you know, religious teacher, if they question them, is that blasphemous? You know, if someone doesn't follow the traditions of the religion, is that blasphemous? You know, um, what what are the parameters of this blasphemy, and who determines those parameters? You know, is it, and the idea of the separation of church and state? You know, in Islam, they have laws and everything. So it's difficult to separate church and state in Islam because the way they deal with debts and other things like other matters of that such, um, they're in the Quran. And so if you're a Muslim, then you're supposed to deal with them in that way. And therefore, if it's like a Muslim nation, then they are going to write their laws to go with the Quran, for the most part. Um, so I think the point I'm trying to get at here is that in a lot of situations, it's the state, right, that's really determining what's blasphemous and what isn't. You know, follow me on this. When Constantine decided to co opt Christianity and make it the official religion, and then they made laws related to that. And if you were to say something against it, it would be blasphemous. And it could land you in prison or killed. Um, um, Even before that, it was like you had the royal families. And if you were to say something like the queen doesn't deserve to be the queen or something, or the king doesn't deserve to be the king or whatever, just because of his birthright or whatever, that would be considered blasphemous, and that could get you imprisoned or killed. I want you guys to try to imagine if there was a world where people were more inquisitive and they didn't have laws, or they didn't have this ostracization, like this way of creating the other based on what they consider to be blasphemous, you know, a world where, someone is saying something that, let's say, goes against your religion or goes against your core beliefs, that you still are able to, you know, have a conversation with them or listen to them or whatever. Doesn't mean that you have to believe what they're saying or follow them or whatever. It's more of having a more open mind to the point where you can kind of expand your perspective on things, like another person looks at things in a different way and you don't agree with them, but you can sympathize with how they came to their conclusions, especially if they were logical, in nature. But I think that a lot of times with this blasphemy thing, we end up falling out of logic. You know, we start to fall into, dogma or indoctrination. We start to fall into, politically correctness, or what's popular now is wokeness, right? So the cancel culture that we have, what they call woke, right? So, like, if you say something that is against the wokeism, if you will, then you get canceled or whatever. You were speaking blasphemous. You were saying something that is not okay to say. Now, the conversation, like I say, the conversation ends at that point. It's it's a wrap. We're not moving forward. We're not going any further. Uh, we're not going to talk about this anymore. Like, I've had conversations with people before, and I ask them certain questions that's related to religion, and then what they say is, "Let's not talk about that. I'm not going to talk about that," or whatever, because they get all emotional and in their feelings, and because they feel like they know already. And that's the problem I have with the whole thing, is like, how can you be so confident? Like, the idea of heaven and hell or whatever, like, who has been there and came back to tell you that that is actually true? And when someone says, like, I had a vision, or I had a vision from God, or God spoke to me in this way, or whatever, God said this, how can you verify that? You're just going by that person's word. How do you know they didn't just make it up? And I'm not saying that people don't, or whatever. Maybe it's true, but I can't verify that. I don't know what what is it that makes us feel like we know already, and that we're so sure about these things? Is it because it was written in some book, or whatever? Or maybe it's because there's so many people that believe it, then it must be true. you know for me, I like to go by evidence. I like to go by what's logical. I like to go by what I can see and touch and feel. Now, I understand that the universe is beyond what I can see, touch, and feel. And there's things that I'll never be able to understand. But I can't, if I've never seen a situation where someone died and came back to life. Now, okay, you got situations where people heart stopped, they had cardiac arrest or whatever, they had a defibrillator or something like that, or they they were resuscitated, you know, but like being dead, like all the way dead, like a corpse, and then come back to life. I've never seen that happen in any person or plant or animal. Like, sometimes you think the plants are dead, but they're not. They're still alive, especially with those roots. What I'm saying is, at some point, we need to realize, or we need to try to think in a way that's logical. Where'd you go, Deuce? Uh, what up, Deuce?